Hey HTDA, and welcome back to Dyson Sphere Program. Today we are going to do a lot of cleanup because last time around I cleared the entire dark fog of one of our planets. 15 bases down, we have a shitload of power now, so that's very convenient. We also have tons and tons of battlefield analysis bases with all kinds of stuff in there. If you think this is a lot of stuff, then we should definitely take a look at these, because there's hundreds upon hundreds of materials in here. Basically what I want to do today is clean all of this up, build an actual factory on this planet, considering we have all this power available here, and we'll actually build a factory, because so far we haven't really been able to do so, because we mostly have been dealing with the dark fog, getting access to titanium and silicon, which we have now, and this is the point where we can actually start to build a proper factory. Okay, first things first, and apparently we are still getting more and more planetary bases landing. Let's hook up all this power we now have access to. Just a matter of building some more signal towers and geothermals. Now, the reason I'm actually using the signal towers rather than normal power towers is for the simple reason that I want to cover as much of the planet as possible with these things. So in case more planetary bases land, I can just simply take them out almost instantly. Which is also the reason, as you can tell, is this close enough to actually get this powered up? Nope. Network 9. I think we have a little bit of fragmentation going on in our network. What you can actually do, by the way, if you don't want to put signal towers all over the place, because it's a little bit wasteful sometimes, you can do something like this. Ideally use the wireless power towers, because that makes things even easier. We just hook it up like this and then put the signal tower on the other side on max distance. And now basically between the two of them you have covered a huge amount of the surface of the planet again with defense. Now, I'm going to have to build a couple of more geothermals. I think I'm out. I'm actually out of everything in my inventory as well in terms of fuel, but luckily we have some more of that. And then fill those up as well. So I connected all of the power, and in the meanwhile another planetary base landed. So this is actually the fourth one, I guess now. Yeah, just keep bringing in the geothermal power plants, guys. That's fine. This one is actually within the range. Yeah, it's going down. If you see it going down, that means the base is actually destroyed. So you're safe. You don't have to worry about massive waves building up or anything like that. But you generally do want to make sure you take these out whenever they land. However, the main purpose that we want to focus on right now is actually collecting titanium and making sure we basically do what you always do at this stage of the game. Get your titanium back to the other planet, do some yellow science, build some interplanetary logistics stations, and basically get the whole production between your two planets automated. Now, we don't actually need that much for that. We don't actually need to mine any titanium at this point, because as you can see, just from the few bases that I collected the titanium from, we already have a couple of thousand. And just to show you how much resources we have, let me pick one of the bases that is a little bit more to the front. Which one is that? It's actually on the other side, of course. We actually also have things like the crystals. Not that many, but yeah, we do have them. But as you can see, some of these bases are actually completely filled up. So we have tons and tons of stuff already here. So that's actually going to make it very convenient to build more stuff on this planet, because similar to what I've done in my last few playthroughs, I don't want to have my main base on the starting planet. I want it over here. Not necessarily because we have a lot of building space, because as you can see, the lava would get in the way as well. We do have a lot of foundations, and we have plenty of soil pile. A couple of million at this point. I think 10 or 50 million even. But the main reason I want to build it here is, again, because of all this power we have available. Let's hope this is the one that's actually connected to the rest. Nope. I need to fix some gaps in my network, apparently. But let's check this out. So this has almost 300 megawatts, and that's not counting, for example, this geothermal over here that's apparently not connected to the rest. So we have hundreds upon hundreds of megawatts of power here, and, well, we're going to add at least 40 more to that based on these bases. Now, let's see. This tower is actually building up threats, and it's continuing to build up threats, so I need to go and take care of that. Okie dokie, planetary bases taken out once again. At this point it's really easy, because those initial bases don't pose any threat whatsoever. As long as you take them out pretty early on, they don't get a chance to kind of build their defenses. We have tons, I'll keep it nice and clean. We have tons of titanium, quite a bit of crystals actually. So this is plenty to actually research the things that we need in terms of yellow science. So let's get to the other planet, which apparently is actually pretty dangerous. And I'll actually continue in sandbox mode here for a moment, because as you can see, flying past some of these hives, you can see the hive is actually at a pretty reasonable distance, but nonetheless I get attacked if you get anywhere close to these massively built up hives. So yeah, travel at your own peril. Now, as you probably remember from a couple of episodes ago, I set up a facility to make just a tiny little bit of organic crystals, but those tiny little bits add up over time, so we have a couple thousand of them waiting for us. So now all we need to do is take another belt like this, set this to produce titanium crystal, and then put in a temporary box like this. We will automate this pretty soon, but for now it's a full box of titanium good to go. And then what we can do is put in a belt like this, and all we need to do is connect all of this up. Nothing special really going on here, but you guys like to see what I do, so there you go. Apparently clicking a belt is really hard, and this needs to go out. We can delete this little part, and we can just copy this like this. None of this is particularly rocket science, but still, we have yellow production up and running here. Now, again, I'm putting in a buffer box because I really like how these boxes actually turn out. No power needed whatsoever. And then I'm going to need to bring this belt up to the research facility over there. Oh yeah, and obviously I meant doing that after I actually produced the yellow science, because the titanium crystals by themselves are not that. So all I need to do is put in some production facilities over here, and then have an outgoing belt to do exactly that. So this is actually the buffer box for the crystals. Then we can put in another buffer box over here for the actual science. And then of course we do need to make sure everything is powered, otherwise it's not going to do us much good. Something like that. Is that in the middle? No, it's not. It does need to be in the middle, otherwise my OCD is going to go insane. There we go, yellow science up and running. Now, of course, we need the diamonds for that as well, but again, we were already producing that for ages, so we have thousands upon thousands of that waiting. So all in all, we actually have, I think, like something like 1,000 yellow science here good to go without having to travel back to the planets whatsoever. So now what we can do is, of course, prioritize research. I should have already done this. But we can prioritize researching everything we need for the interstellar logistics. So that means we need to research the titanium, and we need to research this. And I think we did everything else in terms of thrusters and stuff like that. Where are the thrusters? Yep, we already did that. So all we need to do now is wait for this, and in the meanwhile we can go back to the other planet and start clearing things up there. Okay, so back on the other planet, what are we going to do? Let's start with some basics. I'm going to use most of the same blueprints I've been using in my previous combat runs. So you can find those all on DysonSphereBlueprints.com. Let's see, we are going to need logistics bots for sure, because, well, in order to actually automate stuff, I really like how these work. These are using Mark 1 belts. We have, what belts do we have? I actually made some Mark 2 belts, so let's make sure we upgrade that. Really easy and straightforward. What sorters are we using? Mark 2. I probably only have Mark 1 at the moment. Yep, so we need to downgrade those. It's a little fiddly initially, but there's no way around that because we haven't actually built up or automated pretty much anything at this point just yet. I do have some automation going on the other planet, as you could see, but I'm just in huge favor of replicating that on this planet to have everything centralized. Just makes life a lot easier. Now, this is going to allow us to actually build these ghostly logistic distributors right now. What else do we need? We need some belts and stuff. Let me just put down some basics and show you what I think you should start with. Of course, there's multiple ways of doing this, but I'm just going to focus on actually the logistics part. So we have the bots and the distributors over here. We have the shuttles and the vessels. Well, we will have the vessels as soon as this science completes, because right now I can't actually build them. And of course, the vessels and ships are not going to be any use to us if we don't actually have any of these logistics stations. So we're going to make the normal ones over here and then the interstellar ones over here. Now, In terms of the materials that we need for that, we're just going to do that manually because we have all of these materials right next door in these battlefield analysis bases. There's no point in automating this. Well, there's a point in automating this, but we want to build towards that because right now we have nothing automated on this planet, so we need to start with the basics. But the more advanced stuff, you can either handcraft, especially things like particle containers, you probably still need to handcraft unless you got some lucky drops. But most of the other stuff like steel, processors and things like that, there should be plenty of that in here to get you going initially. Actually, keep in mind that the thrusters are actually a drop as well. So what we could do is put a box in here, something like this. Just put the box in here like that. Like so. Copy a box. Put a box on top. Oh, I actually need to craft it, but basically put a box on top here. Put all the thrusters that you have in terms of drops in here. That basically means that you have to craft a lot less of these initially, so you don't have to waste your steel on that. Okay, I just spent like 3 minutes wondering why I wasn't getting any of these bots, and then I figured like, oh right, it's no longer made by turbines, it's made by engines. So yeah, I actually need to change my recipes here a little bit. Luckily, there isn't that many recipes that changed. I think this might actually be the only one that has actually changed. But be careful when you use your old blueprints that you update them where needed. Okay, so in order to get things going, let's build a couple of things to make our lives a little bit easier. For example, we are going to need quite a bit of titanium alloy, which we are definitely going to want to automate. But in order to do so, we can't actually handcraft this. This is one of the few things that we can't handcraft, so let's just make a simple layout like this. Put some boxes on here like this, like this. And I'm actually going to make a similar layout for the particle containers and processors. Those are the other two things that we need in larger quantities than we will get them from the battlefield analysis bases. And that will actually help us prepare for automating things between our two planets and actually show us what we need. Now, as you can see, there's actually a base now on my home planet that will hopefully be taken care of by the automated defenses that I already have there. Should not be a problem, but it's a good thing to keep an eye on this because you won't actually see this until the wave is pretty much already there. So there's no way I could get back in time to defend if I'm not actively paying attention to that. Okie dokie, something like this. And remember, we have a lot of materials on this planet already. So as you can see, I already produced some particle containers just by dumping in for example, the graphene that actually dropped on this planet. Now we're going to have to bring in a lot more than just this, but as you can see, this is just a convenience thing to have in place. Now I'm probably going to have to remove these production lines. I will likely need to keep this one in place because you can't actually handcraft this. This is just a temporary facility that we want to rebuild in a different way, but for now, let's just get things going, just to make sure that we can start producing, for example, some ILSs. And I'm just putting in some resources by hand just to make sure we get the ILS production up and running. So you can see this is pretty slow, so anything that you can already kickstart in production, make sure that you do. As you can see, I already put up all the logistic distributors now. They're not doing anything yet because there's no materials to gather from anywhere. But as soon as I put this up, we have our little setup for the mall. I actually put in some belt production here and some sorter production as well. As you can see, even Mark III sorters are pretty straightforward to produce at this point because they don't need that many complicated materials. And again, we have a lot of materials here. There's just collecting them from the battlefield analysis bases, putting them in here and get yourself going. It's a really convenience thing. We can actually upgrade some of these sorters as well. As you can see, I have already done that here. But I want to be careful about not wasting too much resource on places that I don't really need it at this point because we're going to have to build a lot more than this. Okay, so before I leave, let's set up some basic distribution. So I really love these mini distributors, super distributors. I'm not entirely sure what size I'm going for here, but basically what this does is this will request those items from the Interstellar logistic stations that are going to request this, and then distribute those to these logistic distributors like this. You have seen the same layout before, but in case you're new to the channel, this is really efficient, and this will allow this to spread to wherever it's needed. So for example, the graphene and the asset is going to go to the particle containers over here, as well as the titanium production over here. Assuming, of course, I put a box on top of here, but let's just focus on actually getting the stuff to our planet. Now, we're also going to need at least 2 interstellar logistic stations. So these things need to have some distance, so let's put one over here. We are going to request at least this and this, because we know we're going to need that. I'm probably going to request some other materials from the other planet as well, because I have a lot of stuff in production there, and I'm not planning on going back and forth too much, so I might as well use that production and hook that up on the other side. I love the feeling when you get your first ILS connection up and running. It's so awesome. I actually messed up a little bit with my asset. I spilled a lot of that over on the floor, so this belt analysis base is there to pick it up and put it back on the belt. But yeah, as you can see, we have the first vessels flying back and forth between our planets now, getting that stuff in place, and then that should be distributed to the little setup that we built so far. Now again, I have these 3 empty spaces. I had this little production facility set up last time that I think it's 2 episodes ago actually, that we might take advantage of. Let's see, I'm probably going to grab, for example, the stone, the what are these called again? Plasma exciters, as well as the magnetic rings. Mostly because the other items we don't necessarily need in bulk initially. Remember, for example, it's really tempting to bring in the turbines and engines and things like that. We're going to need those at some point as well. But we need to start with the basics first. Okay, so I don't know about you, but this is starting to look like an actual production facility. It almost looks like we have a main bus over here, which I don't recommend that you build in this game at all. But yeah, it kind of looks cool nonetheless. I actually decided against the plasma exciter and went with the gears and the iron instead, for the main reason that we are going to need these things immediately to build some basic belts, for example, some basic sorters. So yeah, might as well start with the most basic things. Ideally, I would want to bring in circuit boards as well. We could if we really wanted to, because we have some surplus of that over there. But let's just keep things simple for now. Okay, so that first part was a little tedious, but things will start really exponentially increasing from this point on. As you can see, we have some first bots going up and running. We have both acid as well as graphene coming into the planet now. We need some more vessels to actually speed that up, because right now I think, like you can see, I only have 6 vessels in here, so it's not going to go particularly fast. We do have an infinite, or more or less infinite amount of iron and gears and coils now, so that just means we can ensure we can produce the basic things right here. We don't have to travel back for that. And actually I added in a little line of steel as well to put some of that iron to use. Because we're going to need a lot of steel for various things, so might as well make sure that's up and running in production as well. It also means that some of these things that we have here could start in terms of automated production. It's not going to go really fast because not everything actually already has the bots. But as we continue to add things to the system, things will start producing faster and faster. However, I nearly forgot to do this, but we definitely want to automate the transfer of titanium to the home planet, because remember, that's where our yellow science is being made. So just adding in a small production line over here to make sure we get some titanium going and we can export that. And then on top of that, I made a secondary line of production for the titanium. Not because we didn't have a lot of that already, but just to make sure I never run out, to fully automate the production of titanium alloy. We actually need quite a lot of this in order to make all the vessels and all the ILSs. So this is one of the production lines that I want to make sure is continuously ongoing. And in order to kind of speed that up even further, I decided to hop back to the home planet and actually connect up the remaining resource that I had in production. So like I said, titanium was kind of vital and I completely forgot about that, so I needed to go back anyway. But now we can bring in the concrete, the glass, the exciters, and the motors as well. Again, it's really tempting to bring in the turbines, but we can make the turbines with the magnetic rings and the motors, so just bringing in the basics, make sure we have the option of having the less advanced material as well, because remember, you actually need this for the sorters. So yeah, this is just going to bring in a lot of resources on top of what we already have. Now, I'm trying to balance showing you everything I do and making sure this doesn't turn into a 2-hour-long episode, although I know some of you like that, I also know some of you don't, so I'm trying to balance that as well. Putting up a couple of ILSs. This could actually be a planetary logistics station as well, because right now we're not exporting any of these resources to the other planet. Just grab a little bit of production from everywhere, from all types of resources mostly. I like using the ILS for that because I can fit everything in. You can't really do that with a PLS, although you do have an extra slot there, so it doesn't work all that bad. It's completely up to you how you want to do that. But make sure they actually have the materials coming in, because you are probably going to be bottlenecked not by how many facilities you build, but actually by how many miners you have active. And as soon as you have that up and running, just start producing a couple of basics from everything. As you can see, we have ingots from all different types, as long with some magnets. And all these things should be coming in here as well. As you can see, it's not going particularly fast, but again, it's slow but steady. And we're not going to be using massive amounts of resources. So I will be using my larger versions of like the smelting stations. But again, we just want to make sure we can actually get all our mole up and running. You don't need that many production just to have your mole working like intended. And as soon as the mole is up and running, we can start worrying about scaling everything else up. Now, I realized I actually made blueprints to do pretty much exactly this, but I actually wanted to try out and do it slightly different this time around. So what I've done here, I am actually expanding the base production over here with a little bit of all the secondary, like the tier 2 production. So we have some circuit boards over here, we have some components, some processors, some engines actually, because we are going to need a lot of these to actually make missiles. The steel here, you might think, didn't we just build steel production already? Yes, but this is fully automated steel, while the other one is actually still dependent on, well, it's also automated, but there's a lot more steps involved. So this is just directly steel production. I can ensure that this is always going to be functioning, because as long as we're making iron over here, we're going to be making steel over here, because it's straight through, while the other production line actually relies on the bots transferring the iron to that, while the bots also have other options to transport that. So this is just ensuring that we have all of this up and running. Now we can actually expand this a little further, I think. For example, let's add in some engines and turbines. So now we actually have turbine production on this planet. As you can see, this is not going to produce a whole lot of turbines, but that is just fine, because we just want a little bit of everything. So we can make some belts, we can make some sorters, we can make some more logistics distributors, things like that. Again, just get it going so you never run out, and then expand on that. I think I've said that like 10 times now, but it's really important. The one mistake I keep making every time, pretty much every time I play this game, is scaling up way faster than I can actually support. So you run into like delays because you actually don't have the materials to complete your blueprints, or you do build like huge bases, but they don't actually do anything because you didn't build the other infrastructure you needed to support that. So small, steady, keep it going. Now, just a few last final touches. I expanded this with some coal production as well. I'm actually bringing in coal from the other planet now. I built an ILS there to collect some coal. We're now producing graphene, we're producing the combustible units, and that means we can also start producing some particle containers over here. I also put in a planetary shield, because of course we might be getting attacked on this planet. And, well, this is just going to make sure that this planet is not actually getting destroyed. Of course, the rockets are going to help us defend against whoever attacks us, but yeah, if any planetary ship, we have a pretty high threat on one of the hives, so any wave of ship comes in here, they will tear this apart, even as they are being shot down by the rockets. So that actually means I think I can take this stuff out now, because we have that in production over there. We probably want to leave, well, we can actually remove the titanium production as well. We do want to leave this one in, because that's going to export things to the other side. I'm actually thinking we should probably move this more north. So that might actually come in place of where this is right now. Let's see, and what else do I want to do with this planet? I actually think I want to remove all of these rocket launchers, planetary bases and things like that. They're kind of in the way, honestly. And we don't need, like, implosion cannons. We don't need all these battlefield analysis bases themselves to repair anything anymore, because we're not under attack. Now, before I start removing all the battlefield analysis bases, I do want to make sure I'm not wasting those resources. So I'm just going to put them into mole units as much as possible. Just delete a couple of them and then take them out. As you can see, I already removed the turrets. That was pretty straightforward, but I left the battlefield analysis bases to make sure I'm not deleting all those resources in the process. So, As you can see, a very basic mole up here. I really like this design. I've been using it since forever, but it works, so don't fix what isn't broken. Honestly, there's a couple of things in here that I probably should set to 0 production or even completely delete, because we don't need Mark 1 belts, we don't need the sorters, we also don't need the turrets anymore, the normal turrets. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can actually see. But everything else in here we are definitely going to need. And basically all the basic materials that we've got, and we can just put them in here to make sure they're not going to waste. Now, on that line of reasoning, we are also going to add in a couple of other things. I have added in a production line, automated production line for the different types of turrets and battlefield analysis bases that we're going to use. Again, I'm not using the Mark 1 turrets anymore, the basic turrets, so just the rocket launchers and implosion cannons in production over here. We don't actually have the magnetic coils over here, so this is not actually going to be automated just yet, but we might as well just put it in place. I actually also made a little production line for ammunition over here, or rockets, as well as the shells for the implosion cannons. As you can see, I need some more distributors to actually make sure we get enough copper, because you need a ton of copper to make all of this. As you can see, everything else is actually in place, you just need the copper. But yeah, there's plenty of missiles that I actually got out of the battlefield analysis bases already. There's some more shells like that in here. So just make sure that we get some ammo going. Because remember, the next thing we want to do, and that's probably going to be the next episode, if I can keep this one short and sweet in terms of setting up our production line. But we're going to have to fight a tiny little battle over here to get access to this planet as well. Because the most of our silicon is actually on this planet. And what I also want to do is set up a farm over here so we can get some more advanced materials for free. Just shooting down the dark fog, but in order to that we're going to need a lot of turrets and things like that. So let's just set that up. What else do we need? How about some missile launchers? Because of course I just took out all the missiles, but if we are actually going to get attacked now, then that's going to be a problem. So I added in another planetary shield as well to make sure that we don't run into issues by having our missile launchers being destroyed. Just connecting this to the actual production of our missiles, so we can make sure that this is always being fueled. As long as I have this basic production up and running, we should never run out of missiles here. Pretty straightforward, and basically this is the defense line, along with making sure that all the surplus production of missiles is going to go straight to other planets, or if and when we need that. Okay, so this I think takes care of a lot of the basics. Let's see, what else do we need to do? It's actually really weird. I just took out the turrets, as I showed you, and I also removed all the battlefield analysis bases. And now this is what we're left with. It looks like a tiny little factory, but actually we are producing a lot of things over here. So we're producing all of these different materials that I showed you before. We're bringing in a lot of other materials from the other planets. And we are actually, we've, as you can see, there's a lot of bots flying around. We have a lot of automation going already. We are producing... actually, I added in the signal towers as well. I forgot to mention that. You can see ammunition being produced. You can see ILSs and things like that being produced. So, all in all, I'm pretty happy with what we're seeing now. This is a pretty advanced base, especially if you consider its size. I think this means that we're now ready to start really scaling this up a little bit as well. So I cleared out a little bit of lava over here, and then let's start looking at our more advanced blueprints. So we're going to need things like basic production lines, more advanced. We're going to need a lot of copper, as well as silicon and titanium, of course. Basically, I am going to follow the same structure as I always do. So putting up the basics first, then probably we want to have some circuit boards and coils. We want some turbine production. We want some processor. Turbines and processors are really like the main bottleneck in the mid game. You need all of those. Things like the more advanced things that you, for example, need from Mark 3 belts. I don't recommend focusing on that too soon. Just make sure that you have plenty of everything else, and then start expanding on that. So, first things first, let's start with iron. It's a pretty large blueprint. As you can see, we need like almost 2,000 belts for that. We need almost 200 smelters, things like that. So again, like I said before, don't do this too early on, because otherwise you'll just stand here waiting forever. We are going to need to downgrade some of the belts and upgrade some of the sorters, probably. Oh no, these are actually Mark 3 sorters already. So let's just get this going. I actually changed my mind and built the other basics production line first because we already have plenty of iron and steel in production over here, but we actually need a little bit more copper and we didn't have silicon just yet. Not enough of it anyway. And we're going to need all of that to make more processors because it seems like the main thing I'm lacking in my mall at the moment is processors. So let's build towards that. Remember that once you build this, if you're using my blueprints, this is actually transporting all the items into a ILS, which is not connected to your mall by default. So you are going to need to go to your logistics stations, distributors, and if you want, for example, let's say silicon to be distributed here, just put it in like this and then put it into one of these boxes over here. As you can see, I hooked up the exits by default. And that means that now my mall has access to silicon, which it doesn't actually need, just showing you as an example. And here is the processor build, so just circuit boards, components, and processors to build all of that. Now this is going to request the more basic materials. The problem is that we don't actually have access to iron ingots in such a way that it can get into the ILS, so we are going to need to make the basics for the iron as well, or fix it in some other way. We might as well just scale up. I'm actually going to remove the sprayers from all my blueprints for the moment because I have no intention of proliferating anything for the moment, probably not for the foreseeable future anyway, and I can't stand the signal over here that is showing you like, hey, you are still trying to build something which you can't, and I should probably try not to mess up the belts in the process. I'm actually going to leave the belts for the sprayers, as weird as that might sound, because if I at some point change my mind and I want to put in the sprayers anyway, then I can. The proliferators itself I will leave intact as well, as in the distributors requesting that. I just don't want to look at these. And of course the other solution to that is, again, I'm messing up my belts here. The other solution to that is just building some sprayers and just leaving them. But I don't want to bother with that. I'm just lazy, right? Just sorry about that. This is turning into a pretty long episode as well, but there is a lot of progress here. So I built the basics for the steel and the gears and the magnets and the iron. Most importantly, the iron, because we needed that in order to make sure the circuit boards are doing something. It's worth noting that at this point you'll probably get bottlenecked, like I've said before, by the surplus of stuff, because as you can see, we are getting in a lot of stuff over here, but that probably means that some of the others are running dry. It seems to be going all right, but we are definitely reaching the point where we're probably going to be trying to produce more than we can handle in terms of inputs. I don't really want to bother going around the entire planet and mining up everything just yet, because I really want to get to the point where we can set up the Dark Fog Farm, and that's actually going to solve a lot of our production line issues as well, I hope. But in order to do that, we're going to need a few more things, so given the length of this episode, let's get through that really fast. We actually need more circuit boards, mostly, strangely enough, for the missile production, so... circuit boards and magnetic coils up and running here. Again, I removed the sprayers in case you're wondering what these weird belts are. You could remove them as well. It's completely up to you. I'll just leave them. Let's see. What else do we need? Turbines. Of course. How could I forget? We always need more turbines. So again, this is going to request a lot of iron ingots. As you can see, we're not bringing in any. That's not because we are not producing any. It's just being split across too many places right now. As you can see, I was producing things like gears in huge amounts as well, so I'm setting the limits down a little bit lower, so we're no longer producing gears. That means that any other ore is actually going to go towards iron. So it will balance itself out. The whole purpose of this is not to have this production lines completely optimized, it's just to get your mall going in a slightly higher rate than we were doing based on this simple layout that we initially made at the start of this episode. As you can see, there's a lot of bots flying around, so we're actually doing a pretty good job in that regard. Let's see, how are we on missiles? Yeah, we have thousands of missiles and shells now already, and that's including everything that's already in here. And actually, in terms of missiles, we have another production facility on our main planet. So I think we're good on missiles. We have a lot of these turrets in production now. We will need to maybe handcraft or auto-craft some of these magnetic rings. But yeah, other than that, we have plenty of rocket turrets. We have some battlefield analysis bases here as well. What do we need for that actually? Oh, we need some more components. So that should get itself fixed now. We have our processor facility up and running. So yeah, we are in a pretty good place. All right, that means that we went from no factory and no automation on this planet to this. Which I think is a pretty good progress for just a single episode. And again, I'm loving how much power we have thanks to the dark fog on this planet. I actually think we still have quite a bit of surplus, yep. We're using about 3/4 of all the power we have available to us, so that's pretty amazing. I haven't been building any solar panels whatsoever yet in this first 16 hours of this game, and still we have everything powered. So, we'll leave this just chugging along, and then next time we're going to think about how we're actually going to conquer that other planet. It's going to be similar-ish to what we did last time, but the end goal that we have in mind is completely different, because we still want to take out most of these facilities, but not all of them, and then set up, like I said, a kind of a dark fog farm, where we completely automate both the defense and the production of the resource and the transfer of those resources back to the other planet, which is going to be a lot of fun. Let's keep it at that. If you have suggestions or ideas for that, let me know in the comments. If you're still here, you're awesome, and I do definitely hope to catch you in the next one.